Fantastic, thank you. So I certainly wasn't 100% sure where everybody was in relation to I suppose involvement in this programme within Aberdeen City Council today, but also even generally just awareness of what Microsoft Dynamics is. So apologies if this is going over old ground for some, but certainly just from my point of view, it gives us a common baseline. So Dynamics is a business management platform. It's an open platform in terms of how we can design on there. It provides a suite of generic capabilities rather than tying us down to specific capabilities. So it is quite easy to build generic services on. And it's cloud-based, so in effect, that ability to provide access to not only our own staff, but partner agencies as well. And the last thing, from my point of view on that, is that it's only one tool in that toolbox. So we have a 365 tenancy in common with most public sector organisations these days. And the Dynamics application works seamlessly with Teams, with Outlook, with SharePoint, with all of those common components of service. So it gives us I suppose, the foundations on which to build out new ways of working and new practice. It's not a vendor-specific application. So in effect, we're not bound by a vendor's customer base in terms of how we can design or what we choose to design on it. And that's been one of the big advantages of how we've used it and how we've developed the platform to date. So if we can skip on one then. We started on this in terms of having some problems that needed to be addressed in the way that our existing systems worked, in the way in which they were used. So from our point of view, the lack of consistency in terms of the way that the existing systems were used meant that we had significant challenges around data input and data collection. And that led to challenges in terms of how data was then used. We also found that the upfront activity we did, 80% of all of our activity happened outside the core application. So looking at all of those wraparound services like Word documents, PDFs, the proverbial spreadsheet, which Martin will be pleased to hear mentioned because he's got a thing for spreadsheets. But that data sprawl in terms of understanding the position on anything was quite difficult to manage. And the activities were difficult to manage as well. So no real defined process flows and difficult to track how long things were taking and what activity had been taken against specific cases. We also found that there was significant variable data quality, and that's been part of our challenge in terms of how we've built and how we've tried to migrate. So a lot of free text fields, a lot of ability to add things that were more narrative based, and obviously there's a balance between being able to describe things effectively and being able to design and build a system that provides that consistency of view. That was one of the things I think that came through in the workshops I was listening in intently on. My input probably minimal, but understanding people talking about that consistency of approach as well. And lastly, the difficulty in creating that single view of activity. So at any point where there was a need to do reviews of cases or conferences, then a lot of people doing a lot of work to try and bring that data together, those documents together to provide that view of what was required. So certainly identified that something different was needed, and the way in which we approached it needed to be different as well. So if we can skip on one again, thanks, Val. Okay, that's not come up. There we go. So that's going to grow. Apologies. Just try and get it all up in a winner. That's perfect. Thanks for that. So really, from my point of view, this was about stepping into something that was an open platform and understanding what we wanted to do. So that whole principle of business process flows and actually getting the people who use the system to design the functionality they wanted to be in that system. And that was a process we went through with our product owners very early in the stage, and we identified 93 top-level processes, which sounded quite manageable and quite easy to do. And then we broke that down, and that became 483 user scenarios, and that became a bit more of a labour of love. But I think stepping through that, because it's an iterative process, because it's iterative design, it was certainly possible to see the system develop and grow as we went through each stage of that development activity. So we didn't get to the end and then suddenly have something unveiled that nobody had understood or seen before. There was that process of constant feedback to say, this is what you've told us, this is what's been designed, does this meet your needs, and how do we move it forward? We've also taken the opportunity to rationalise a lot of the document types and some of the additional activity around the system. So we have 102 templates which are designed into the system. In the main, those are automatically created as part of those process flows. So using a third-party plugin product, the social work practitioners can actually create the documents required. Those documents are then automatically named and stored in a SharePoint structure, which means that we understand where data is and we have control of that data at every point in its journey. We've got at least 39 reports, so those are the kind of statutory reports, and there'll be a suite of more generic reports that are developed as we go forward as well. And the last thing around it is just in terms of that usability, we've got 124 embedded video help screens. So actually within the application, at any point if a user gets stuck, they can click, and what they'll get is video context around the activity they're trying to complete and a bit of assistance to do it. And the last thing I think I want to say about that is that, you know, as this flowed through, we also widened out those kind of product owners, and we had 90 coaches that were involved in bringing all of this together and then actually delivering it to end users. So a long process, 9 months, I think, in terms of development activity, and another 9 months since in terms of stepping through the various testing processes and making sure that we've got all of the training in place that we need. Can move on again. Thanks, Val. So I've touched on some of this, but just to confirm, what we've actually designed in here is process consistency. So the solution allows the teams to operate consistently through those business process flows and embedded knowledge articles. So staff are guided through the journey as they go. The process efficiency, so information entered once can be used many times and fed into hard copy templates so that we're not collecting information in multiple different ways and then trying to add it to the system at a later date. Access control is consistent with the approach to our entire tenancy. So role-based access based on service, team and role type. And that allows us to get very granular about auditing. So it's plugged into our corporate auditing tool that we run across all of our infrastructure. And that means we can see what activity is being undertaken on which records by which users and which groups. I spoke a little bit about the data quality. So improving the data quality, data standards and data entry. So more mandatory fields that allows us to get more granular and more meaningful about the things that we're collecting, and also conditional formatting on fields as well, so that we understand that the right things are being put in. Data governance. So one of the things I spoke about was that 80% off system activity. The way that this has been designed is that we'll almost keep the data in those kind of secure repositories, whether it's in the system, whether it's in those SharePoint folders that are linked to the system. But actually what we'll push around then is the ability for people to access that data where it resides, rather than taking constant copies of that data and firing it around to individuals that need to be able to input to the cases or the clients that are in those documents. Operational intelligence. So how do we aid performance reviews, looking at case load allocations, case type trending? All of that's linked in through the kind of the inbuilt monitoring of the system, and also through the data and analytics work that Martin and his team are doing on that as well. Each team has a service queue, so it's simple to use. Work's allocated to service queues, and then the team can manage the workload and distribute it among staff members accordingly. That means we're not, again, pinging stuff back and forward through emails, where stuff can be missed if somebody's not at work, somebody's not monitoring their mailbox for a particular reason, and stuff falls between the cracks. We've also developed that kind of single pane view for chronologies. So again, that's one of the things that a lot of the social work practitioners are very excited about in terms of how the new system works, is that ability to view a chronology within the system and see all of the activity associated with that client or that case. And to make sure that's a complete view of data, we don't just have the live case information in there, we've also taken the opportunity from inside the Dynamics application to link back to a copy of legacy data that was supplied out of Care First. So in effect, when you're looking, you can look at the activity that's current, but you can also go back and review a case in terms of the activity that's gone before. And I did touch on that, removal of a lot of the manual overhead of rekeying data or taking data out of hard copy documents and putting it into forms within the system. So the system's populated with the data, and then any documents we need are generated from that master copy of the data. Thank you. If we can skip on another one. And this is where I go right outside my comfort zone, so apologies for that. But there was that kind of view in terms of an understanding of what needed to be done and what's been designed in. So the benefits specifically for public protection, as I see them or as we see them, are that quality of chronologies and protection planning. So key and integrated part of the Dynamics platform. The chronology function's user-friendly, and we hope it will be more widely used in social work practice as we move forward. Understanding those timers, so around the length and duration of an investigation, so actually seeing a counter that counts down the days left in terms of timescales, less reliance on individuals, and then that dashboard giving the seniors of each team oversight, looking at overdue cases, looking at authorisations, and understanding that single view of the world. The system does include the ability to refer to advocacy functionality. I'm not even going to pretend I know what that means, but I do have it on good authority that's built in there. So again, another opportunity for us to get better at what we do. There's a distinction as well within the system about what is informal inquiry and what is formal initial referral discussion process. So clarity between the recording, between the inquiry and what is an IRD meeting as part of policy. Management oversight I've probably covered, but that kind of stage 1 inquiry view and those stage 2 investigations clearly tracked and sent to seniors via the Dynamics platform for authorisation where that's required. We can track and record all of the attendance at case conferences. Recordings of reasons where adults have not been invited as well is all included in the system. And those are actions in relation to perpetrators. So perpetrator of harm is identifiable, tracked on Dynamics within the system, and that's locked down user access and view permissions and links back to that role-based security I spoke about. The last thing to add there is it's extendable to other settings. So I spoke about the fact that this was a kind of an open collection of capabilities. That means that in effect, where we have a use case, we can build out new functionality. All we need to understand, if we go back a couple of slides, is what are those user journeys that we want to be replicating in terms of any new settings. So a couple of areas that are already in scope for us to look at, but certainly anything else we want to do is well within our reach. I'm going to apologise in advance for the next slide, and I'm purely showing it in terms of overall context, so I have no intention of talking through it in any great detail, but if we focus on the right hand side, that kind of bottom quadrant that's labelled Aberdeen City Council, and the one above it that's named partners and other agencies. So the first thing I want to point out is that from an architecture point of view, we have Dynamics pretty much sitting in that shared space between the two. Again, that goes back to the cloud-based nature of the access and the fact that we have those partner views already built out in the system and available for use. So in effect, we can extend the use of Dynamics for specific cases and in specific instances. But moving slightly to the right, what I wanted to highlight is the opportunities around other things that are already built into the platform or are available to us as part of our partners' infrastructures. So starting from the bottom, that Power Automate diamond there, that is our ability to automate activity within our 365 tenancy and then route those activities somewhere else. So those can be extended and those can be fired out to shared tenancies or federated tenancies. API management is a kind of global way of passing transactions and information from one system to another. And again, that capability has been delivered as part of the Dynamics project work. And the last one that is in there as a connector is that National Integration Platform. That's an NHS capability. It exists, it's real, and we can be using that in terms of being able to interchange. Again, I would suggest transactional activity and messaging and alert statuses rather than passing back and forward individual data elements. So scope, I think, for us, not just to build out what we want to see locally, but also the scope to build across partner agencies, either at a local or a national level, as we identify the need to do so. And again, thanks very much, Val. This is kind of where I step in and hand over to Martin, but what I wanted to pick up was, from a technology point of view, the stuff that I have spoken about here, the stuff that we're working on in terms of Dynamics, is the bottom half of that diagram there. So what we want to do is modernize our application estate and move away from those point-based solutions that only do one job at a time to a much more loosely coupled set of components that allows us to design and build as we go. The opportunity there is to connect that to the data maturity curve that's at the top, which is definitely more in Martin's space than mine, and he will speak much more eloquently about this than I'm about to. But driving through that data maturity at the same time as the application maturity, what we hit is at the right-hand side, that intelligent applications. So again, a lot of the conversation in breakout groups was about how do we get people the right information at the right time to make decisions. I think we do it at the right-hand side of that maturity curve by bringing together our data maturity and our application maturity and putting the information in the hands of people that are making decisions at the point of contact.